Hello and welcome back to Devil's Gambit. We will be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after... I believe we were getting sort of like the backstory of how Ryan, whatever, came to be, and how the whole split with Cadgan and Rain is, how it works, where Rain is actually the Cadgan that Hector was, falling for, I guess. The Cadgan that was actually playing with him and whatnot. And the Cadgan that is the wolf on the right here, is his own separate entity who is technically the original Cadgan minus all the emotions. He doesn't experience the love and some other emotions that Rain feels. Rather, everything that he feels goes to the quote-unquote demon, who is Rain. So yeah, it's a little weird because Cadgan, the one that calls himself Cadgan, looks like Cadgan, whereas Rain looks completely different. But he is the one that Hector knows and loves, while Cadgan is a completely separate person who does acknowledge Hector, but not in the same way that Rain does. So that explained the whole like, oh, you're back. Huh. Okay, nice to see you. Whereas the Rain was like, yeah, I'm gonna invent this whole personality so that I can approach this guy that I have been waiting for years to return because I'm so excited and I can't wait anymore. But yeah. And they're both sharing the same body. Anywho, basically they were fighting over the body, and then eventually at the end, they decided, you know what? There is no use fighting it. We need to basically work together and, you know, get over it, I guess, in a way. But yeah. Anywho. So I guess without further ado, let us continue Devil's Gambit. Act 3, Chapter 2. 9 years. We open our eyes, and the me that breathes, Cadgan, looks furious. It makes sense though. I have control of the body, so he thinks that I tricked him and stole it. I raise my left hand and look at it, then I extend it towards him. After a moment of staring, as if just finishing deciphering an ancient instinct, he grabs it with his right hand. The connection lasts but a second. It's like phasing through somebody and being filled with thoughts that are not yours at the same time. They are not mine but his. The body is his. He stares at our form with his mouth agape, and then at me, transparent as I am. The cyclical lethargy will never return. We've agreed that the body is ours to share, even if I still find a new shape and name. We no longer need to hold each other under the water's surface. I hope that he can trust me. When Iogen sees that we aren't falling asleep and sees that there is nothing that he can discern as unusual anymore, he tells the Duke. He keeps looking at us through that crystal of his, but it's useless. Then Leopoldino decides playtime is over. There is no goodbyes or fanfare, but a tin man that wakes us up, takes us downstairs and pushes us into a carriage alongside the Badgers. As Renai approaches, Iogen the doctor is quiet. He has given up on looking, because even he sees by now nothing will come from it. Then Hector. Hector is quiet and looking down with a sad face. It's weird. I wanted to sink my claws into Leopoldino's neck, or at least be free of him. But now that I'm here, I realize that I'm sad too. I still don't want Hector's time and Renai to end. I don't want it to ever end. He should stop whatever he thinks he's doing with his father and spend every day with me here. The good parts of these last 2 years can remain. But they can't. Later, Iogen goes to visit the maker of the quick hill arrows. A quick stop to say goodbye, he says. He means Hector should do the same, and leaves us alone for a bit. When will you come back? Huh? I'm not sure. I heard Dad used to come to Renai pretty often when he was younger, but he hasn't visited in a while. You don't need him to come here, do you? What? When you grow up, you'll be able to do anything you want. Hector chuckles. Yes, I suppose I will. I'd like to be able to return faster, but once I become a doctor, I could come and go as I please. I wouldn't need him to take me anywhere. That's what I like to hear. I grab him into a chokehold and he pretends to fight back. When it's time to take the carriage back home, he looks a lot more cheerful. We both know that he'll come back, even if it takes a bit longer. There is no reason to be so sad. Yes, we'll be together again in no time. Once he's become a doctor, once he steps out of his father's shadow. Their carriage arrives at the center of the village, and that's when Iogen tells me Hector needs to leave. There is neither warmth nor spite in his voice, nor is he too quick to step in. But when he gets in, I hear the coins in his purse and the smile on his face. It is only when the doors close and I see the carriage growing tiny in the distance that I realize that he never said goodbye. Adjusting to life in Vernai was difficult, and not just because of rain. It was me who had to ask the villagers what had become of Irnan after we couldn't find him at the church, since Rain's first instinct was to jump and tear claw. We were standing right outside the building, looking rather lost despite the familiar streets. When I stopped an older wolf just passing by, suddenly I realized that I was furrowing my eyebrows and balling my fists. I froze up, unsure of why I was so angry. The wolf gasped because he recognized me, and then chuckled because he figured that I was grumpy that Irnan wasn't where I expected him to be. Saying that, I relaxed just a bit and asked him about Irnan's whereabouts. Later on, when we were walking to the old shrine, Rain wanted to turn with the body. Are you sure? Weren't you afraid that he'll treat you like a monster? Yes, but he's the only one that tried to help me. I was still shaken from the sudden rage, and to be honest, he was the one looking forward the most to seeing him again, so I let him. Our steps grew quicker and quicker until we were running through the forest. The trees and stones parted in our wake, not wanting to bother us. When we arrived at the shrine, Rain knocked on the door and called Irnan's name. Wood clattered behind the door. We heard stomping footsteps approaching, and then the door opened violently. Irnan looked at us in shock. Snowball! Rain jumped and clung to his chest. Irnan laughed, hugging him tight. Even I felt a bit of warmth from that moment, as Irnan fell to his knees and cradled our head on the nook of his neck. He looked like he couldn't believe it, and kept squeezing Rain's shoulder, as if trying to confirm that he really was there, that he wasn't an illusion, and that disappeared any second. And then he smiled, and he cried, and so did Rain. I just watched with a smile at first, but then countless worries and considerations began filling my mind. Seeing Rain be so emotional, so happy, made me wonder how I would behave in his place. Would I have been able to give Irnan such a heartfelt reunion? I really didn't know, but the idea that I couldn't made the emptiness in my heart feel so much more vast. And also, I realized that it'd soon be time to tell Irnan what happened at the mansion, but no matter how much I thought about it, my mind was blank. But I'd have to figure something out eventually. He brought us into the little home that he had made out of the temple and sat us in front of the table as he threw everything that he could find into his cauldron to make us an improvised stew for us. I've missed you so much, Snowball. It's been lonely without you and... He trailed off. But it's great to have you back. I'm so sorry that I couldn't break you out in the end. I wanted to go back, but I couldn't do it alone. Rain felt so warm that he forgot how to speak for a moment, and I had to reach up and pull at his leg to remind him to say something. You did what you could. Guess so. Irnan patted us in the head as he put the stew in front of us. Rain devoured it as if that was the first serving of real food in years. The older wolf laughed, amused, but I imagined also relieved to see him in such good spirits. After eating, Rain began talking about Hector. At first, he painted a rather pathetic picture, laying down and staring at the ceiling. He recalled the day that they met and how he punched him into the ground. But Hector was also good at foraging. Despite how treacherous Renai's forest is, he never needed help finding his way except in the dark. He knew about magic and concoctions that Rain couldn't even grasp. And he had a fortitude that rivaled our own. In Rain's own words, having survived being drowned by his father, his suffocating presence that seeked to snuff out anything that didn't fit his masterpiece. And then, once the sun fell and we went to sleep, Rain began crying under the sheets. Irnan stayed by his side to comfort him. I didn't think about it back then, but until that moment, he had never been given a moment to grieve our parents. He always tried to appear strong, even in front of Hector, especially in front of Hector. Before returning to Irnan, I had planned to tell him about Rain as soon as possible, but after a few days of starting to live with him, I found myself hesitating to say anything. I suppose that I too was worried about how he reacted to that information. That and Rain just wanted to go back to being a kid, and at the back of my mind, I felt that telling the truth would somehow put an end to all of it. Those carefree days again, interrupted only by sudden tears that came out of nowhere and ended just as suddenly, could not exist alongside what we had become. We were living on borrowed time. The truth is a capricious thing that easily slips from between your fingers when you feel like it. Such was the case the first time that we tried to do archery practice since our return. With some effort, I was able to notch the arrow and hook my fingers on the string, and I was still capable of pulling it with my back, but letting go of the string and arrow at the same time was impossible. Our aim was terrible. I knew what was going wrong. This was a rookie mistake, but no amount of focus or practice was able to change it. Irnan was watching us attentively and quickly realized that it wasn't that I just was out of practice. He told me to stop and inspected my hand. "What's wrong? What happened to your hand?" "It looks fine, but I, I don't know. It's been like this for a while." Irnan was staring hard, but then just told me to take a break and try again later. That suspicious look didn't leave him until night, however. That night, just as we were about to fall asleep, we heard him shuffle as he got up from bed. I shut my eyes hard and waited as I heard him move around the room, trying to decipher what he was doing all the while. Rain was paralyzed like a frightened animal. Then there was a faint glow, the sound of the door opening and closing and footsteps fading into the distance. Once it was quiet, I got up and took a peek outside. An orange light was coming out of the windows of the shack next to the shrine. Irnan spent a good part of the following nights studying the old text, searching for something that would either alleviate or confirm his worst fears. Rain kept alternating between saying that he must have noticed something was up and that he would have asked us about it already if that was the case. But I was certain what little childhood Rain had been able to enjoy would soon end once more. One day after breakfast, he told me that we needed to talk and asked me to sit with him at the table. That was when I knew the moment had come. "Snowball, how are your hands?" "Still the same. Why?" He scratched his head, struggling to find the words. "I don't know how to put it, but did the Duke do anything to you? Did he make you touch something strange?" I looked at my hands as they balled into fists on my lap. My eyes were wide open and my throat closed itself. "Snowball?" But in the end, I got the words out. He made the doctors pierce us with these needles. Me and the other wolves too. When I began talking, I couldn't stop. Not even Rain howling for me to stop fazed me. The melting test subjects, Rain, how we eventually learned to exchange control of the body. At first, I saw panic in Irnan's face, then rage, then murderous intent as he eyed his bow. And yet, once I was done, when there was nothing else to say, he approached me and hugged me. I hadn't realized how much I was shaking. "I swear, if that bastard ever tries to touch you again, I'll kill him. There's nothing to fear now. Nothing to fear." I don't remember what happened next, and neither does Rain. The next thing that I knew, I was lying in bed, and the sun had already surpassed its peak and was coming down. Irnan had brought one of his books from the shack. Snowball, are you feeling better? You just began, choking. And then you began crying and crying until you fell asleep. Rain was the one that had been crying, so I wondered if he had taken control somehow. But I didn't think that it'd be intentional. Just because I couldn't feel my emotions anymore, it didn't mean that they didn't exist. They were just there with Rain now. So once they bubbled up and overflowed, they forced them to come up as well. At least, that's how I'd eventually come to rationalize those unintentional switches, or the times that we were able to hold the other's neck. I think so. How about Rain? Or are you Rain? Rain was curled into a ball just out of the corner of my eye. He wasn't looking or talking to me. He wasn't exactly angry at me, but he clearly didn't want to talk after I ignored him earlier. I'm Cadgan, and Rain is, he's feeling grumpy right now. What is that? I was hoping to show you this. The book was open in the passage that talked about the changes that the eye could force upon a wolf. It said that its influence reached the hands first, because it's through our fingers that nature's essence flows to create magic. When you no longer belong to nature, when you're acclaimed by a different god, your capacity to produce nature's magic diminishes or even disappears, and by changing our essence, it affects how we interact with the world. Suddenly, I remembered my biological father mentioning something similar when I was younger. Irnan changed to a different page. I couldn't believe it at first, but it was the only thing that made sense. But now that I know of Rain, there's no denying it. You two are now a shaman, wolves that were split into two selves. There used to be many of them back in the times of Old Renai, but after the wolves decoupled themselves from the eye and lost access to its essence, they couldn't create any more of them. And eventually they died out. So, what does that mean for us? Well, you and Rain went through a lot, and you have struggled with each other, but it's good that you managed to settle those differences. I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with what you are now. This doesn't change anything for me. The shamans lived among the wolves for years after they departed from the heart of the valley. Times are different now, but I'm sure you two can be happy here in Renai. Rain never formally introduced himself. Irnan promised us love and safety, but an irrational part of him was still afraid of betrayal. But Irnan was perceptive enough to begin to tell us apart after only a few days, and then he just began calling Rain by his name whenever he noticed that he was in control. It caught my brother off guard the first time, but that approach did work eventually. Irnan didn't make a big deal about what we were acting as if he had known Rain for years, which I suppose isn't completely incorrect. Eventually, Rain began peeking out of his shell of his own volition, although it still took him a few years to come up with his Runsky persona. Out of us, Rain was the most interested when it came to reading about the shamans. How did they meld their houses with trees? I'm not sure of the process, but it definitely was part of the eye's power. It's interesting that it has the power to split, but in other circumstances to fuse different things together. Perhaps it's because something new comes out of the union. Old texts like this one put a lot of emphasis on the aspect of making something new. The wolves of ancient Renai gained significant power by letting the eye touch them, but the culture that developed around the shamans was pretty gentle. Their new siblings were like dreams come true. Through them, they became people that they could only imagine otherwise. I don't think Caddy thought of me like that at first. That was back then. You two will have a lot of time to come up with a dream for yourselves now. I only want to see Hector. Irnan rolled his eyes. You can dream bigger, Rain. Although Rain huffed and stomped the floor in indignation upon learning about Irnan's exile, I thought he'd been lucky to get away with just that. Well, it made sense Leopoldino showed him mercy considering that he was afraid of what Rain could do if he learned something had happened to Irnan. What worried me more was the possibility of Leopoldino enacting vengeance now that the experiment was over, But considering that never happened, I think he just forgot about the mutt entirely. The village would send someone over every once in a while to make sure Irnan wasn't lacking anything, a responsibility that Rain wanted to take over. Why not? I thought. We were living with Irnan and regularly going to town anyway. It only made sense, but Rain didn't think it through. He wanted to be of help, but whenever he stepped into town, he'd clam up and ask me to be the one in control the whole time. He didn't even want to look at the other wolves. It felt strange to go to the market or talk to the other kids with a hole in my heart, feeling whenever I looked at their faces the distant echo rising from my depths. That once, there was a boy who knew their names, who had been welcomed into their homes and played with their children, who trusted them and prayed for their help. When they grabbed us, dragged us into the carriage to the mansion, to bondage, to the cage in the lab, into the dark cell, we prayed for they who never came, all of them traitors who abandoned us. Each and every one of us, all of us on whom the Duke experimented, of which we are the only survivors. Things will never be the same. But those were Rain's emotions. Though I could hear the echo of what he felt, I could not grasp it myself, so while I did not hate them, I didn't really love them either. I enjoyed their company, I liked being part of our Nye, but I didn't love them. Teresa was the only one Rain wanted to play with. Watching them put pranks together did make me smile. It was like they picked up right from where they were left off. It gave me hope that things would return to how they once were. Can I do that? Irnan was in the middle of carving a pile of wooden frogs. Rain sat next to him, watching with wide eyes. Not sure it's a good idea. It'd be good for my hands, I bet. If you want to cut them, maybe. But don't you practice the bow like your brother? He's almost back where he was before. We had spent the last few weeks trying to learn to perform the finest tasks again. Irnan was exaggerating about my progress, hoping to dissuade Rain from playing with knives. The bow is boring. I want to make statues. When Irnan understood that he couldn't get the idea out of Rain's head, he decided that it'd be better to let him do it with supervision than behind his back. Irnan finished making the frogs and hung them on the trees leading to the temple. He built a sling for us and then added a bigger sling next to it so that we could all play together. And finally, he made a larger sculpture of our parents and put it under the frogs so that they would also welcome us every time we returned from town. Only after that, and after countless accidents with the carving knife, was Rain able to finish his first sculpture, a small badger shaped somewhat like a cube. Irnan patted his head proudly while Rain showed it to him, but sighed when he saw Rain place it next to the statue of our parents. Then, one night, we were waiting for dinner to cook when I brought up something that had been in my mind for a while. So, about our hands. Is it possible for us to learn to do magic again? Just like we learned how to use the bow again, or to carve? He went silent for a minute, but his dejected expression had already told me everything that I needed to know. Magic is different. You remember those medallions your father used to work on, right? Those come from an ancient tradition of magic that was meant to solve exactly this problem. You could learn that and use magic again, but you wouldn't be able to use it in front of others. If you were seen practicing such magic and an inquisitor ever caught wind of it, well, then how will I take over the temple? To that, Irnan didn't have an answer. Because there wasn't one, it wasn't going to happen. It didn't matter how I twisted the question or from which angle I approached it. I would never be a priest. It was all good, or so I thought at least. But when I went to sleep that night, I couldn't close my eyes. I was supposed to be a priest. I felt it in my bones. That was what I was meant to be. And not only because it was what my parents always wanted for me, but because of the connection to the people on the land. The priest in these times before the earth helpers used magic and their connection to nature to protect cattle and crops. They were the ones people came to when they had problems that they needed to get off their chest, and had nobody else to turn to. And in Renai, they were connected to the land's forgotten history. They were the keepers of the past. It was heavy duty, one that was perhaps too cruel to push onto a child from such a young age. And yet, now that it had been taken from me, I didn't feel any lighter, just hollow and brittle. How many nights did I spend up past my bedtime reading? All that knowledge, all that practice, all the sigils that I had memorized had been for nothing. And the last connection with my family had been lost. Even back then, I knew that it was a bad idea, but I hadn't felt that way in so long. I didn't know what to do. As days passed and the emptiness did nothing but keep eating away at my chest, I reached out to Rain's hand and passed that final burden onto him. Only then did the pain go dull, the memories of the sigils growing blurry as it did. I didn't know when Rain noticed what had happened. It may have been the fact that he suddenly was interested in Iernan's book collection despite having no interest whatsoever in reading until then. Or perhaps the pain of knowing that he wouldn't be Ranai's priest began eating away at him too. One day, he went outside and curled up by the statue of our parents to confront me about it. Hugging his knees and, with eyes half opened, he spoke to me. "You did it again, didn't you? Come on, I know you did." Rain wasn't looking for an explanation because he didn't need one. With those feelings in him, he immediately understood why I had done it. And to my surprise, he didn't resent me nor curse me for making him carry yet another burden. What he wanted was, "Say something." "I'm sorry." "It's all good. I'll accept this burden one last time, but in exchange, you need to promise me something." "What?" "Never do it again. I want to be Rain, and Cadgan needs to be Cadgan. Don't even try it, okay?" "But I've never done that to you. I don't even know if it can be because I've never tried it. I never wanted to, and much less now. No matter how long it takes for him to come back, I want Hector to recognize me, and I know that he will, but not if I'm a different person by then. So, let me be myself." Hector is not here, yet I can find him in so many places. He is in the water's reflection when we bathe or clean our clothes. His voice is still carried by the wind. Foraging for fruits brings back memories of him. Hector is everywhere. When I close my eyes, I see him in the back of my eyelids. He is in my dreams too. Sometimes I even see him in the black and white of my fur. But he's been away for too long. With every day, his reflection becomes fuzzier, his voice fainter, and the nuts and berries don't remember him as much. When I tell Iernan, he says to send him a letter. Of course, obviously, his words alone may not be enough to restore his presence in all things, but they will make him last longer. Even Cadgan helps. He doesn't show it as much, but I know that he's looking forward to the next time that we see Hector. We don't know where Oblon is. It's somewhere in the far east, at least 2 weeks away by carriage, much longer if you're walking. The letterman nods and tells me to let him handle it. And so we wait. Every day we look around for newly arrived carriages. We wait for the letterman's knock on the door every moment. We wait. Come back soon, Hector. The notion that you could cut away parts of you, one at a time, at such a rate that you barely notice those things are missing until you are at the brink of vanishing, that made me concerned. I'd like to think that even if Rain hadn't forbidden it, I would never burden him again, but I'm not so sure. Much like I once stopped him from slitting his throat with a knife, that day that he might have stopped me from eventually doing something irreversible. Giving him the priest part of me already would have made consequences beyond my imagination. It started around a year after we returned to town. By then, I had gotten a job as a helping hand in Teresa's family farm. Rain, absorbed in his rejection of Renai, had taken refuge in his new interest in priesthood. It was a way both to entertain himself and to remember the happy times when our parents were around. As I helped Teresa's dad, he mumbled to himself the name of runes or old stories that he had read. Some nights upon returning to the shrine, Iernan would teach him about the shamans and their deceitful spells for hours. Although they had little practice use for us at the time, Rain began practicing some of the simpler sigils that were used as replacement for the more mundane natural magic. Thanks to him, drying our clothes went from taking hours or even days when there was bad weather to just a few minutes, so I was very grateful for that. Until one day, his fur began changing. It was subtle at first, but eventually it was obvious that the separation between the black and white layers of his fur was disappearing, becoming a dark shade of gray. But whenever I was in control, I look as I always have. Irna looked worried at first, but it did not take him long to realize the answer. He took us to the swing outside the shrine, and we talked. Rain, Cadgan, you remember the shaman tree, don't you? Your parents took you there a few times? Yes, of course. Do you remember how the dead resting there looked? Didn't some of them look unusual? Right, one of them had 4 legs. Yes. You see, when one becomes a shaman, they gain the power to change their shape. For most, one part would retain the original appearance, and the other would gain a new form. And it seems the process has started for you. Iernan's eyes betrayed his worry, and I felt the same, but Rain had a starry eye, lost in the fantasy of finally becoming a proper shaman with demonic look and everything. How do you think I'll change, teacher? Will I gain wings, or maybe horns? Or extra arms? It's hard to say. But more importantly, I don't think that you realize what this means, Rain. What? If you change and become more demonic, if you look visibly touched by the eye, you may not be able to show yourself in front of others anymore. You realize that, right? Rain thought about that for about 3 seconds before shrugging. I'll be fine, as long as you let me see Hector. Iernan put his fingers on his brow in consternation. Seeing Rain being so childish made me angry then. I didn't understand how he could be so blind. Not talking even to Teresa, only able to exist inside the old shrine's walls or hidden somewhere in the forest. It was like being locked up in Leopoldino's mansion again. I didn't want that for him. This had only started when he became obsessed with Renai's legends, almost as if his body was responding to his mind, so surely there could be a way to reverse it, or at least prevent more changes. Later that night, when Iernan was already snoring, I turned to Rain and told him what was in my mind, that it wasn't too late, that I was even willing to take back the wish to become a priest if it meant him being free. He was stunned into silence, but after a moment he frowned and shook his head. Maybe you're right, Caddy, but I need to do this. Why? I don't get it. Because who says that there won't come a day the Duke tries to take from us again? Iernan, Hector, Teresa. He could take them all away if he wanted. But not if I'm a shaman. Once I have strong magic, once he sees me as a demon, he'll think twice before touching us or anyone else ever again. I didn't know how to respond. Hidden between his words was a fear so intense that nothing that I said would have soothed it. All I could do was go back to sleep, praying the time would someday heal Rain's wounds. A few days later, I was sitting on my side of the swing, just looking at the blue sky when Iernan returned from gathering some berries. He put down the basket and offered me some, as if they were candy. Head in the clouds, Snowball? Is something the matter? I'm just thinking about the other wolves that were in the mansion with me. Ah, yes. Nature blessed their souls. I guess we were lucky not to end up like them. Rain's presence stirred. His now red eyes turned from the frogs to me. Were they buried? Back when I was still in town, no. The families were still holding on hope that they were alive. But that might have changed now that you two are the only ones to return. Suddenly I felt Rain close to my ear. It would be nice if they all got a proper burial. They were scary, but they were just trying to be nice to us. It wasn't a bad idea. I hoped me and Rain, as well as the victims' souls, which I prayed hadn't fallen into the ice clutch, would find some peace from it. Later I asked Teresa about it. She closed her eyes and looked up for a moment, and then snapped her fingers. Right, one of the families picked this little hill in the forest and made a tomb there not too long ago. But why do you ask, Catgan? You've been acting all weird and boring lately, and now you're bringing this up out of nowhere? Is something up? No, I just, sorry. I've been in a strange mood, I guess. I can tell that much. I'm asking about this because I like to make sure all of them get a burial, but I don't know how many of them there were, let alone their names. She brought her hands to her chin. Huh. Caddy, well, I don't remember everyone's names right now, but if I ask around, I'm sure that'll jog my memory. There was a lot of talk about the disappearances right after they happened. Oh, really? You'll help? Yep. I can't stand seeing you be such a sad sack anymore, so promise me that you'll cheer up after this, okay? I'll try. That answer didn't satisfy her, but she kept her word nonetheless. She had procured 15 names for me by next week. I wanted to buy each of them a headstone, but Teresa shut down that idea fast. It'd take us years to earn enough money for all of them. That same day, I asked Irnan if I could borrow his axe. I had seen the priest do it countless times before. Make a notch on the side and then cut it thin. Get out of the way when it's about to fall. Easy. Each chop was accompanied by the sound like an explosion, and bark and chunks of wood falling everywhere. It felt almost sacrilegious to take so violently from the forest that I had been raised to respect my whole life. But nature didn't care about taking by force, and seemingly neither did the eye. After a few minutes, my hands hurt, and I had to take a break before finishing the job. Afterwards, Irnan helped me cut the trunk into pieces, and from those, Rain carved 15 wolf statues across 3 months, each with one of the victims' names engraved on it. The day everything was ready, Teresa stopped by the shrine and we set off towards the hill. Teresa led our strange little group, with Irnan following close behind, carrying a bag with half of the statues and another with the implements that he used to perform the last rites, and me carrying the rest. The sun blinded us as we climbed the hill, the shadows at our feet marching onwards with a solemn resolve. The grave that had already been there was a tiny thing. It was covered in leaves, and I felt bad leaving the statues in front of it, because its ears were tall enough to cover part of the name engraving in the stone. We pushed the leaves away, sending them dancing into the air. Irnan dug holes in the form of a semicircle, and we buried the base of the statues in them. We ended up putting the one that corresponded to the grave right next to it. When everything was ready, Irnan took out a small bowl and a flask from his bag. What's that? A mix of salt, water, and razorweed. In olden times, they used this mixture to quell the regrets of those who were lost to the dangers of the valley. Of course, they died because of the Duke, but it shall serve the same purpose. That is to say, if a body was contaminated, it helped prevent the corruption from spreading. It began being used during shaman funerals, but as they pivoted towards sigils to cleanse its influence, it became a mostly symbolic tradition. In that sense, it truly was fitting for this funeral without relatives or bodies. Just 3 people who had lost friends and family, and even if Teresa didn't know everything, she knew that we had lost our parents, and seeing what she interpreted as me being sad wasn't easy for her either. Rain's attention intensified as Irnan took the bowl in both hands and raised it up high, as if asking the sun to bless it, and then walked around us, carefully letting the mixture drip as he recited a prayer for the dead. The trail left by the mixture formed a circle to complement the statue's semicircle. O nature, save their souls from the oblivion of truth. Let them live forevermore within us. Alois, Albi, Kate, Elva, Velman, Fianna, Garvin, Liam, Mara, Nevin, Orla, Oren, Rowan, Sean, and Oleg. Rest easy knowing that we shall keep you alive in our hearts. Your dreams shall be endless. Why did you think that we survived and not them? I don't know. I don't know if we survived either. What do you mean? You said it yourself. If you are a valley creature, then what am I? My name is Cadgan, but that's only because we agreed it is. and I look like Cadgan, but that might not have been the case if things played out just a little differently. When I think back to the memories from before we were taken to the mansion, none of them feel like they belong to me. It doesn't feel like they're mine. We were both the same, two branches growing off the tree that they call Cadgan. Caddy. There should be one more statue here. Irinen's placing his hand on my shoulder brought me back to reality. I hadn't noticed until then that I had been trembling. Everything all right, Snowball? Yes. Come on, at least try a little bit harder to lie. You kids did a good thing. I want you to know that. But for now, let's go. I'll make you some of your favorite stew, okay? Okay. I feel him in the motion of my hands, the curves and the creases of his face, the roundness of his shape, the softness of his embrace. Through chisel, I pluck him from my memories, and although he's smooth rather than soft, I can hold him in my hand. I repeat the same movements like ripples traveling across 3 years, but little by little they fade. My movements wane, and I stare at the incomplete statue and see a face that I don't recognize. When Hector comes back, I might not recognize his face, right? How much has he grown up since I last saw him? Why isn't he answering? Did something happen? Is he alright? But I don't want anything to happen to Hector. But why else has he not responded yet? I've sent letter after letter after letter. Hector, where are you? Where have you gone? For how much longer will you keep me waiting? I've made sure that I'm myself. You knew me as Cadgan, but I'm actually Rain. I hope to tell you the next time that we met. Where are you? Not even in the movement of my arm can I find you any longer. Hector! Hector! A table flips. A chisel is stuck to the wall. Jars fall off their shelves and smash. Irinen comes in with wide eyes. Mom? Dad? Where are you? Hector! Don't leave me either. Come back! Two arms wrap around me. I fight and thrash around, but warm words soothe the sadness. Only a little, but just enough that my arms drop and I cry on teacher's chest. It's so bitter and boring and lonely here. I need out. I want to see him again. Don't leave me alone again. Don't abandon me again. I'll go through every length for you. I'll be as strong as you want for you. So why are you disappearing from everywhere? I didn't have a clue about what happened. Rain was quietly, if with a somewhat sour expression, sculpting one of his statuettes. And then, in the blink of an eye, the old shrine was a mess, and Dad was comforting him. Rain? What's wrong? Between cries, he kept repeating the same things. Don't abandon me. Where are you? Mom, Dad, Hector. Irinen, ever the sturdy tree, was nonetheless tearing up as he took in the pain of the wolf he had once come to see as a son. I'm here, Rain. Nobody else is going away, I promise. Rain, there must be an explanation. Maybe if we ask the mailman, we'll find out what's happening. I didn't know that if he was actually listening, but that did seem to calm him down a little. The one that we called the mailman didn't actually deliver any letters. Rather, he was one of the ones connected to the people in touch with Renai's trading partners. Whenever he knew a caravan was heading to a certain way, he'd give them the mail to deliver it during their travels. He was very reliable, all things considered. When we went to ask him about those letters, he had no clue what could have happened for the letters to be delivered. But after asking for some more details, his eyes opened wide with realization. How did I not notice? That region you're describing, it's been struck by a terrible plague. I can try to find out more, but most likely my partners have been avoiding the area, or this Hector person has fallen victim to the plague. My hands froze, and I broke into cold sweat. My stomach turned almost as if Rain was trying to rip himself out of my body to interrogate the man himself. For the first time in years, I felt again the sleepiness of the cyclical lethargy. When the man reached for my shoulder, I slapped his hand away and ran. I wasn't going anywhere. My mind had gone blank with the sound of Rain's howling. It wasn't rage or even sadness behind it, but pure panic. Once I was deep enough into the forest, he came out. He burst out of my chest and began punching and clawing at his surroundings, letting out snarls that after a while began sounding like words. "He's wrong. Hector's all right. He just... He dug his claws deep into the bark, frustrated and desperate for closeness. And I felt ashamed that I had failed him. I had overlooked how lonely Rain felt, foolishly believing that he'd be happy just waiting for Hector as long as he had my company and Iernan's. Rain hadn't complained, but he wanted to be strong so that nobody would hurt him again. So of course, he wouldn't show vulnerability, not even to us. And now that there was the possibility that Hector would never return to Renai, I just knew that this couldn't keep going. Something needed to change. Eventually, Rain exhausted himself to the point that he curled into a ball under the tree and fell asleep. Only then was I able to take back control. I stayed there, staring at the claw marks Rain had made and the blood under my claws. I would say that I was considering my options, but there really was only one that I could think of. Rather, I was indecisive between the option and simply waiting. It was the guilt of having allowed Rain to wait all by himself that drove me to act a bit reckless that day, but I don't regret that choice. I headed back into town, and from there I kept walking until I reached the outskirts and headed down a road towards a certain farm. A wolf leading some beasts spotted me and greeted me. "Hello, sir. Is Teresa around?" He called out for her. A few minutes later, she came prancing from the house. "Hi, Catgan." "Oh, you look like crap. What happened?" "I'll tell you. But first, can you come to the shrine? I'd rather talk there." "Oh, Teresa. What brings you here today?" "Caddy wants to talk about something, but he's being all secretive." That's all that it takes for Iernan to catch up with what I'm doing. "That's so. Are you sure, Snowball?" I got close and whispered. Iernan then noticed the dry blood under my claws. "What happened?" Rain panicked when we went to the mailman. "I don't know if Hector's coming back, but I can't bear to see him alone anymore. Please let him have a friend." "Snowball, are you aware of what you're dragging her into?" "Into a life as our accomplice, into a world of risks that I could not have specified but which I already fathomed. God, she would go on to become our co-conspirator even after the birth of her children." "Yes, but what other choice do I have?" After a moment, Dad nodded. Teresa tilted her head, puzzled. "What are you two whispering about?" "Teresa, you see, I've been hiding something from you." "Oh, you got a crush on me?" "No, there's two of me." "What do you mean?" I balled my fist as I contemplated how to tell Teresa that I was no longer who she thought that I was. But when faced with the task of explaining my own existence, my mind went blank. Would telling her that I was Cadgan and him Rain be enough? Of course not. Instead, I began flipping through many words, a mirror, a half, a branch splitting. But none of them seemed appropriate. None of it encompassed us. Reaching under the surface, I stroked Rain's ear. His eyes opened ever so slightly. "Rain, are you awake?" "Yeah." "Teresa is here. Do you want to talk to her?" "Can I? I thought that it'd be better if I didn't." "Yes, but I think that we can trust her at least." He moved his fingers with hesitation. Slowly but surely, he reached for my hand and took it. Teresa gasped as she saw her fur turn dark, her eyes red, but once she took in Rain's expression, there was a flash of recognition in her eyes. It was faint, no stronger than an intuition, but it was there. "Iernan? What's happening?" "This is Rain. You two have met already." As Cadgan said, there are two of him now, as a result of the Duke's actions. Rain is his other side. Think of him as his other self, another Cadgan, or his brother, if that's too difficult to grasp. Rain rubbed our eyes, our ears so low that they seemed stuck to the back of our head. He was still shaken, but he managed to give Teresa a smile. It's been a while, Teresa. Apparently it has. What's up with you? You look like you dropped your bone candy in the dirt. The mailman, he said that Hector died from a plague or something. But that's so stupid. Hector's a doctor, so he wouldn't die from that, right? The moment that he brought up Hector, I think everything fit into place for Teresa. Rain had told her about Hector before. In fact, he talked about him for so long that sometimes she covered her ears and pretended to take a nap just to get him to stop. Rain looked different, but she still recognized him. I figured that he wouldn't. So, that's all? That's what's got you so sad? Rain nodded. Don't let something so stupid get you down. I'm sure Hector is fine. She wasn't trying to cheer him up. She really meant that. I guess neither of them ever considered that a doctor would be at the most risk in times of plagues, but I kept that thought to myself. So, we played a lot together, right? Are you the one that likes pranks? Yeah. Ah, so the other Cadgan wasn't acting weird. He was just hiding you from me. See, he's so mean sometimes. Just sometimes. Like either of you have any room to talk. Rain smiled at that. Would it be strange to say that I found his smile soothing? Seeing him regain his mischievous vigor, which he had lost in the monotony of chiseling away at the wooden statue while he waited for Hector, made me feel like perhaps everything would be all right. Maybe Hector would return eventually, or maybe he wouldn't. But at that moment I felt at peace, and that was all that mattered. As long as Rain could find some happiness, everything would be all right. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So we got a little bit more of the backstory of how Rain becomes what we end up seeing, meaning, the devil version of him, which looks distinctly different from the Cadgan that we know. And we also got to see how Rain was introduced to Teresa, who becomes, I guess, his other friend, somebody that he can actually talk to and, be with, aside from Cadgan and his dad/teacher. So it was nice for Cadgan to, I guess, make the exception for him in order to bring somebody else into the fold in a way. And it is dangerous for Teresa because now she is complicit in a way. She knows that there is this creature, that this friend of hers has like not a split personality, but has a whole nother different person within them. They are two people within the same body. It was cool also that you could see like the slight shifting in the way Cadgan would look like in the past, and the way that Rain was sort of slowly turning into what he is now in the present. Also, their teacher, their dad, looking kind of hot, looking kind of, interesting. But also, I did notice something which I had noticed from the very beginning when they show up. The eye, one of the eyes that they have kind of reminds me to the eye that the some of the lions have, which is like they have the black sclera, and then they have like the little yellow eye, which the yellow iris, I mean. And he has one of those eyes, and he also has sort of like these the teeth poking out, sort of like what a Cadgan has. But I don't know if it's in this video or the one that you're gonna see next, where they refer to him as Mutt. And I'm wondering if he's like part lion or if he is part something else. He's like wolf, but he also has a little bit of something else in him. Also, I'm wondering because if you recall in the older version of his sprite, he looks to be like heavily scarred and I think he's even missing an ear. So like what eventually happens to him that he ends up looking really, really ragged? Because right now he looks good, for lack of a better word, but like, wow, what happened between then and now? Anyways, yeah. So Rain finally has another friend while he waits for Hector to hopefully return because, you know, I mean, we know that he's gonna return, but as far as they are concerned, he may or may not return and he may or may not be alive. So that kind of sucks for him. But yeah. So what are your thoughts? Write it down in the comments and thank you all for watching/listening. If you would like to play Devil's Gambit yourself, you can do so by going down to the link in the description, which will have a direct link for the itch.io page where you can download and play the game yourself. They do have a Patreon, so if you would like to support the project and get early access to builds of Devil's Gambit as they're being worked on, you know, you can do that. And you get access to some like behind the scenes stuff, and I think, I don't really remember. I do know that they do have the build that comes after this one already on Patreon, so like if you see these videos and you're like, I want to know what happens next, and you will, you know, you want to read for once, it's there. This is like the first part of like a two-parter, so yeah. I don't mean the video, I mean like this update is the first part of the two-parter. It's spread out into two pieces. But yeah. Anywho, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by becoming a channel member, and it does give you earlier access to these videos as they're being scheduled. So this is going to come out on the 22nd. It was recorded yesterday, the 21st, Sunday, or the 20th, I forget. And, you know, the channel member people are going to get to see it first. You will have to wait until January, probably the second week of January. Anyways, also, I have a Ko-fi in case you're feeling that you can donate through there instead, or a Throne in case you're feeling overly generous. So yeah. Anyways, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.